Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the journey of addiction. It's a really tough topic, right? It can feel overwhelming, but we're going to break it down. We'll look at how it starts and, just as important, how the path to recovery gets started.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with the big one, the question that really sits at the heart of this whole conversation. Is addiction a choice, a disease, or is it some kind of moral failing? How we answer that question, it changes everything. It impacts treatment, laws, and even just how we see and treat people struggling with it.
All right, to make sure we're all on the same page, let's look at what the experts say. The clinical definition is really important here. Check out the key phrases: recurrent failure to control and despite significant negative consequences. This is so critical. We're not just talking about someone who lacks a bit of willpower. No, we're talking about a powerful compulsion that keeps going even when it's causing real, serious damage to someone's life.
So that really begs the question, right? Where do you draw the line between just a bad habit and a full-blown addiction? I mean, we all have habits we wish we could kick. But addiction, that's a whole different level. The line gets crossed when that behavior starts to tear apart the very fabric of your life, your work, your health, your relationships. That's the real difference.
Okay, so where does this all come from? To really get it, we can't just look at what's happening on the surface. We've got to dig deeper, down to the roots. And what you find there isn't one single simple answer. It's a really complex mix of a whole bunch of different things.
And a lot of the time, it starts right here, deep inside the brain's reward system. Now, you can think of this as your brain's natural good job circuit. When you do something essential for survival, like eating something delicious, it gives you a little hit of a feel-good chemical called dopamine. Well, addictive substances, they basically hijack that system. They flood your brain with 2 to 10 times the normal amount of dopamine. It's this massive pleasure surge that the brain just isn't built to handle, and it creates this incredibly powerful urge to do it again and again.
But here's the thing. It's not just about brain chemistry. That's only one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Addiction really comes from this complex dance between our biology, our brain wiring, and, this is a big one, our environment. None of these things act alone. They're all tangled up together.
So let's zoom in on that last one, the environment. Because our surroundings can be like a shield, or they can be a trigger. Things like a chaotic home life, the friends you hang out with, or even just the attitudes in your community, all of these can make someone way more vulnerable. It's a huge reminder that what's going on inside us is often deeply tied to the world outside.
And this brings up a really fascinating question. Just how powerful is our environment? Could it actually be the number one thing that decides whether someone struggles with addiction or not? Well, a pretty famous experiment decided to find out.
Okay, let me tell you about the rat park experiment. Picture this. In one setup, you have a single rat in a tiny, boring cage. All alone. That's condition 1. In the other setup, you have Rat Park. It's this big, fun cage with toys, good food, and, this is key, other rats to hang out with. Now, both sets of rats were given the same choice, a bottle of plain water and a bottle of water laced with drugs.
And the results? Honestly, they were stunning. The lonely, isolated rats in the small cages, they almost always chose the drugged water, over and over, becoming completely hooked. But the rats in Rat Park, the ones with friends and things to do, they pretty much ignored the drugged water. And get this, even rats that were already addicted stopped using when they were moved into that better, happier environment. Just incredible.
So the Rat Park experiment shows us something huge. If our environment is that important, then getting out of addiction isn't just a single decision. It's a whole process of changing your world, both inside and out. It's a journey, not a light switch you can just flip.
And in fact, researchers have found that recovery is almost never a straight line from point A to point B. Instead, people tend to go through a kind of cycle with different stages. Sometimes you're moving forward, and sometimes, you might take a step back. It's all part of navigating a new way of living. And this is what that looks like. It's called the Stages of Change model. The biggest takeaway here is that it's a circle, not a ladder. It's a map that shows us that people can be in very different places when it comes to being ready to change, and that's totally normal. So the journey might start in what's called pre-contemplation, where someone doesn't even see their behavior as a problem. Then they might move into contemplation. That's when they start thinking about it, kind of weighing the good and the bad of making a change. After that comes preparation, where they actually start making plans to do something about it.
Okay, then you have the action stage. This is where the rubber meets the road, and those plans get put into motion. It takes a ton of commitment. After that is maintenance.
That's the long-term work of keeping up the progress. But, and this is so important, the model is realistic. It includes another stage, relapse.
And this is the crucial takeaway here. Relapse is not a failure. It is not the end of the road. In this model, it's actually seen as an expected part of the journey. It's a chance to learn what went wrong, to regroup, and to jump back into the cycle, but this time with more knowledge and maybe even more resolve than before.
So, if recovery is this journey through different stages, what is it that helps people move forward? What actually lights that spark, that motivation to change?
Well, one really powerful tool is something called motivational interviewing. And the idea behind it is actually pretty simple, but it's also profound. Instead of a therapist telling someone why they have to change, they help that person find their own reasons for wanting to change. It's about drawing out the motivation that's already there, not trying to force it in.
Yeah, as Dr. Stephen Rolnick, one of the co-founders, says, the whole point is to stop solving problems for people and start encouraging them to solve them for themselves. It's a shift that's all about respect and empowering someone to be the hero of their own story.
And it's not random. It follows 4 pretty clear processes. You start with engaging, which is all about building trust. Then focusing on a specific goal you both agree on. The real magic happens in evoking. That's where you help the person voice their own arguments for changing. And finally, you get to planning, working together on a real strategy to move forward.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about the individual's journey, but remember Rat Park? That experiment really points us to a much bigger question. How do we build a world, a society, that stops addiction from even starting?
The answer seems to be in building what are called protective factors. You can think of these as the human version of Rat Park. Things like strong family connections, supportive friends, a sense of community. They all act like a powerful buffer, a shield against the things that can lead to addiction.
And we know this isn't just a nice idea. It actually works. Studies show that prevention programs in schools are super effective, especially when they go beyond the old just say no message. The programs that really make a difference are the ones that teach kids critical life skills, like how to communicate, solve problems, and manage their own feelings. They give young people the tools they need to handle life's challenges in a healthy way. And that brings us right back to where we started, to that core idea. Addiction often grows in isolation, but recovery blossoms in community. We've seen that this is a journey, not a final destination. So the last question I want to leave you with isn't for the experts. It's for every single one of us. How can we all help build a better, healthier park in our own communities?